Hello there, my little monsters. I hope you are doing well. Michaela, I'm not sure if you're back from your whole school camp yet, but if you are, I hope you had an awesome time. So make sure you send me a voice message and tell me what adventures you had. Um, so, we are moving on today to chapter 13. In chapter 12, the white bears and the snowman had got into the three bears' house. And Moonface, that clever old Moonface, he had made the fire go really, really big in the house, and so it melted the snowman. So, this is chapter 13. It's called Moonface Gets Into Trouble. Here's the picture. I don't know what that's about yet, but I'm sure we'll discover when we get down there. So, chapter 13, Moonface Gets Into Trouble. The children didn't really feel like they wanted to go to any lands at the top of the faraway tree for a little while. It was a bit too exciting to climb through the clouds and see what was above them. But they did want to see their friends in a tree, and especially old Moonface. So the very next time they had a day to themselves, they set off through the enchanted wood to the faraway tree. There was no rope to guide them this time. It was only at night that the rope was swung through the boughs to help the woodland folk up and down. The children began to climb up. Every door and window in the tree seemed shut today, and not a soul was about. It was quite dull climbing up the tree, actually. Even when they reached Silky's house, that was all shut too. And they couldn't hear Silky singing or anything. So they knocked, and they knocked, but there was still no answer. So on they went up to Moonface's, keeping a good lookout for Dame Washalot's dirty water coming swishing down on them. But not even her water appeared that day. It all seemed very quiet and peaceful. They reached Moonface's house at the top of the tree and knocked at his door, but nobody opened it. Inside they could hear quite well that somebody was crying. It was very mysterious. "Doesn't sound like Moonface," Franny said, puzzled. "Let's go in and see who it is." So they opened the door and they went in, and it was Silky sitting in a corner crying bitterly. That's what the picture is. Can you see? Poor old Silky's having a little cry. We need to find out what's happening to her, don't we? "Whatever's the matter," said Joe. "Where's old Moonface?" asked Franny. "Oh dear," sobbed Silky. "Moonface has been thrown into some dreadfully strange land at the top of the faraway tree because he was rude to Mr. What's-his-name down below." "What? That old man who's always sitting in a chair and snoring?" said Beth, remembering that they hadn't seen him that day. "Whatever did Moonface do?" "Oh, he was very naughty," wept Silky. "And so was I. You see, we heard Mr. What's-his-name snoring as usual, and we crept up under him and saw his mouth was wide open. And oh dear, we put a handful of acorns into it. And when he woke up, he splattered and spluttered and popped, and then he caught sight of us hiding behind a big branch." "Goodness, did you really dare to do such a naughty thing?" cried Beth. "No wonder he was angry with you." "Moonface is dreadfully bad sometimes," said Silky, wiping her eyes. "He makes me naughty too." Really? Does someone else ever have the power to make you naughty? I don't think so. I think you always make your own decisions, right? Although it strikes me that you three might make each other naughty, now I think about it. Are you ever naughty? Maybe. Maybe not. Nah, you're too good. "Moonface is dreadfully bad sometimes," said Silky, wiping her eyes. "He makes me naughty too. Well, we ran away up the tree to Moonface's house, and I got in safely, but Moonface didn't. Mr. What's-his-name caught hold of him and threw him right through the hole in the clouds into the land that's there today." "Good gracious!" "Well, can't he get back?" said Franny in alarm. He can climb down the ladder. Climb down the ladder, surely, back into the tree." "Yes, he could, but you see, Mr. What's-his-name is sitting on the ladder ready to catch him and throw him back. So what's the use of that?" "What land is up there today?" asked Joe. "The land of the old saucepan man," said Silky. "What the heck is the old land of the old saucepan man? What does that even mean? I don't know." "He lives there in his cottage with his pots and pans, and he's quite harmless. But you see, Mr. What's-his-name will sit on that ladder till the land swings round and another one comes. Then Moonface won't be able to get back, and he may be lost forever." Ooh, this story's getting very dramatic. "Oh dear," said Joe in dismay, and the girls stared at Silky in despair. For they were very fond of old Moonface now. "Isn't there anything we can do?" asked Joe at last. "Well, there's just one hope," said Silky, fluffing out her lovely golden hair. "The old saucepan man is a great friend of Mr. What's-his-name's. If he knew his land was at the top of the faraway tree today, he might come along and have a cup of tea with Mr. What's-his-name. And then Moonface could slip down the ladder back here." "Oh," said the children, and they looked at one another. They could see quite well that this meant one or all of them going up the ladder and getting into another peculiar land. "I'll go," said Beth. "After all, Moonface helped us last time. We must help him now." That's nice, isn't it? "We'll all three go," said Joe. So they set off up to the topmost branch of the little ladder, where they found Mr. What's-his-name sitting reading his newspaper and brewing a pot of tea that sent swirls of steam up through the hole in the clouds. "Please, can we pass?" Beth said timidly. "No, you can't," Mr. What's-his-name said rudely. "Well, we've got to," said Joe. "So if we tread on your feet, you must excuse us." There's another picture. That is Mr. What's-his-name, sitting there, boiling a kettle, reading his newspaper. Mr. What's-his-name simply wouldn't move. He was really a very cross old man. He grumbled and he growled at each of the children as they squeezed past him, and they were very glad when they were very glad when they had climbed through the hole and they were in the land above. "So this is the land of the saucepan man," said Franny when they were standing on the grass safely. "What a funny little land." It was. It was an island floating in what seemed a sea of white. It wasn't really much bigger than a large field. Beth went to the edge and she looked over. "Goodness," she said in alarm, "it's like a cliff, and the sea is a big white cloud. Don't go too near the edge, anybody. It wouldn't be nice to fall off, I don't think." "Hey, hey," yelled a sudden excited voice. They turned round and saw Moonface waving at them and running towards them. "Hey, how did you get here?" "Hello, we came to see what we could do for you," said Joe. "We heard what happened, and old Mr. What's-his-name is sitting on the ladder still, waiting for you. But Silky says this is the land of the saucepan man, who is a great friend of Mr. What's-his-name. So we've come to see him and ask if he'll go and have tea with his friend. Then you can slip down safely and go home." "Oh, good," Moonface said joyfully. "I didn't know what this land was, and goodness me, I was quite afraid of falling off it. It's so small. Where did you suppose the old saucepan man lives?" "I can't imagine," said Joe, looking round. All he could see was a very large stretch of grass with no house and nobody at all in sight. Where in the world could the saucepan man live? "We'll have to go very carefully around this funny little land," said Beth. "His house must be here somewhere. But we better hurry, for you never know when the land will swing away from the faraway tree, and we don't want to live in this odd place forever." They began to walk around the land, and presently they came to a cliff that wasn't quite as steep as the others, and they peered over it. Joe pointed to something stuck on the cliff. "Whatever are those?" he said. "They look like some sort of steps down the cliffside," said Beth. "They're saucepans," said Franny. "Yes, they're saucepans with handles stuck firmly into the cliff, and the pan is the pan part to tread on. How very strange." "Well, this must be the way down to Saucepan Man's house," Joe said excitedly. "Come on, be careful, girls, or you may fall and roll right over the edge of this land." So very carefully they began to climb down the cliff, treading on saucepans stuck into the earth. It was really rather fun. They got down at last, and they heard a very curious noise indeed. It was a sound of crashings and bangings and clatterings and clangings. The children were quite alarmed. "The noise came from just around the corner," said Joe. They crept very cautiously to the corner and peeped round. They saw a crooked little house with saucepans for a chimney, and the noise was coming from inside the house. The children crept to the window and looked in, and inside they saw the strangest little man they had ever seen, dancing the strangest little dance they had ever seen. He had saucepans and kettles hung all over him, and he wore a saucepan for a hat. He crashed 2 saucepans together as he danced. Do you think he's dangerous? Joe said in a whisper. And that's the end of the chapter. It's just getting exciting now, isn't it? How very exciting. So that was chapter 13. I will send chapter 14 in a few days' time. But do you know what I've been thinking about? If you all had the chance to go to the Enchanted Forest and have and go up the magic faraway tree, and you had a chance to discover a land at the top, what would that land be? What would it look like? What would it smell like? How big would it be? How many other characters would be in there? Or how many other people or animals would be in there? Why don't you, over the weekend, this weekend, sit down and draw out what the land at the top of your magic faraway tree would be like, and then you can ask Mum and Dad to send me that picture, and that would be so cool. Right, my darlings, I shall see you soon. I love you loads, and I miss you not this much, but this much, a whole bunch of much. Okay, my darlings, love you lots. Speak to you soon.